The Curious Alien Visitor. Valari had never seen a planet like Earth before. She came from a world called Nix 7, a cold place with silver skies and tall, glowing towers. Her people were quiet, emotionless, and logical. They did not hug. They did not laugh. They reproduced by placing samples in machines. No love. No feelings. Just science. Valari was chosen for a galactic student exchange program. It was rare for a Nixian to be sent to Earth. But Valari was different. She always asked strange questions and showed curiosity, something her teachers didn't like. Maybe this planet would fix her, they thought. She landed on Earth in a quiet countryside town. The sky was blue. Birds sang in the trees. Flowers grew beside wooden fences. It was all so alive. Her host was a human male named Jake Carter, age 28. He was tall, had messy dark hair, and always smiled for no reason. He lived alone in a small house with a large window that showed the stars at night. When Jake first saw Valari, he raised an eyebrow. "You're taller than I expected," he said. Valari blinked. "I am exactly 6.3 Earth feet, as stated in the documents." Jake laughed. "Right. Well, come on in. I cleaned the guest room." She stepped inside carefully, scanning everything with her glowing teal eyes. The walls had strange art, pictures of people hugging, dancing, laughing. She didn't understand them. Why show emotions? What purpose did they serve? At dinner, Jake cooked something called pasta. Valari touched it with a fork, unsure. "You eat this?" she asked. Jake smiled. "Yup, try it." She took one bite. Her eyes widened. "This releases dopamine." Jake laughed. "Yeah, it tastes good. That's kind of the point." After dinner, Jake turned on a screen. A romantic movie played. Two humans holding hands, kissing under rain. Valari tilted her head. "They are transferring bacteria." Jake choked on his drink, laughing. "That's one way to see it, yeah." Night came. Valari went to her room. The bed was soft. The blanket smelled like detergent and something else. Was that comfort? She didn't know. She couldn't sleep. Earth was too loud, too alive. She got up and walked quietly down the hall. Then she heard it. Strange sounds, rhythmic, breathless, soft moans. Human mating? Her eyes widened. She stepped closer to Jake's door. The sounds grew louder. She backed away, confused and disturbed. "What is that?" she whispered. She returned to her room and pressed a small button on her wrist device. It recorded sound. "I will ask him tomorrow," she said to herself. The next morning, Jake was making coffee when Valari entered the kitchen, her face serious. "Jake," she said. He looked up. "Morning, Val. Sleep okay?" "No. I heard sounds. From your room. Between 0:42 and 01:13 Earth time." Jake froze. Valari continued. "Were you engaged in reproduction?" Jake dropped his coffee mug. "What? No, I mean, what? Why would you?" Valari held up her wrist device. "I recorded the audio for study." Jake turned red. "Oh, no, Valari, that's private. It wasn't that. I was just watching something on my tablet, a video. For adults." Valari stared. "Adults mating?" Jake buried his face in his hands. "It's called adult entertainment. Humans sometimes watch it alone for pleasure. It's normal." Valari blinked. "You do this and often?" Jake stayed silent. Valari tilted her head. "You reproduce with no partner? No emotional bond?" Jake sighed. "It's not reproduction. It's just pleasure." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You do this all the time?" Jake scratched his head. "Not all the time, just when I'm bored. Or, never mind." Valari looked horrified. "Your species is bizarre." Jake laughed awkwardly. "Welcome to Earth." She sat down slowly, her mind spinning. What kind of planet was this? Humans had strange rituals. They touched. They kissed. They reproduced without emotion. They even smiled when they were sad. It made no sense. But part of her, deep inside, wanted to understand it more. Valari sat at the edge of the wooden porch, legs crossed, typing into her wrist device. Early morning sun touched her silver blue
skin as Earth's birds sang loudly in the trees. She found the sound annoying, too cheerful. Her glowing screen displayed the words, Subject, Human Mating Observation Report, Day 2. She spoke clearly into the device.
Humans appear to engage in reproduction for reasons beyond genetic continuation. Pleasure, emotion, boredom, highly inefficient, possibly dangerous. Inside the house, Jake was whistling and cooking eggs. Valari watched him through the window. The male danced a little as he moved, completely unaware he was being studied like a test subject. Jake called out, "Want some eggs, Valari?" "They're not cloned, promise." Valari stepped inside and sat at the table. "Why do humans sing while preparing food?" Jake shrugged. "It makes things fun." She stared. "Fun?" He grinned. "Yeah, it's when your brain feels happy, even doing boring things," Valari typed again. Note, humans inject emotion into daily functions. Very inefficient, but fascinating. After breakfast, Valari asked to observe more mating rituals. Jake nearly choked on his coffee. "Vel, that's not really something people do in public." "Then how do humans find mates?" she asked seriously. Jake scratched his head. "Well, there's dating, talking, flirting, going out together." She narrowed her eyes. "Show me." Jake laughed nervously. "Wait, you mean like, now?" "Yes. This is research," he sighed. "Fine. I'll take you to the city." They took a hover bus into the town nearby. Valari scanned every couple they passed, holding hands, whispering, even kissing. She kept notes in her device. Jake looked like he wanted to crawl into the sidewalk. At a cafe, a young human woman laughed loudly while sitting close to a man. Valari leaned over and asked, "Is she preparing for reproduction?" The woman coughed on her drink. The man stood up, confused. Jake quickly pulled Valari away. "You can't just ask that," he whispered. "Why not?" She replied calmly. "I am conducting research." Jake sighed. "Earth isn't a science lab." Valari thought about that. "Then how do you learn?" He pointed at his chest. "Here, feeling, experience. That's how we learn." She looked at him curiously. "That is inefficient, but interesting." Later that evening, Valari sat on the rooftop with Jake. Stars glittered above them. She turned to him and said, "I have one more question." Jake nodded, watching the night sky. "What happens after mating? Do humans stay with the same partner forever?" Jake shrugged. "Sometimes. Some marry, some break up, some just move on." Valari looked down. "So there is no guarantee?" "Nope," Jake said. "But when it works, it's beautiful." Valari blinked. "You risk heartbreak, just for temporary pleasure?" Jake smiled sadly. "That's what makes it real." Valari stood up, her hands behind her back. Her voice was soft. "I want to try human bonding. Emotion. Connection." Jake froze. "Wait, what?" "This is still research. I want to understand." "You mean, like a date?" "Yes. You said it is the first step in human connection. I will follow your customs." Jake stared at her. "Valari, it's not a science experiment. A date should be special." She nodded slowly. "Then make it special." Valari stood in front of the mirror, wearing Earth clothes for the first time. Jake had suggested the outfit, a soft sweater and jeans. To her, it felt like she was wrapped in someone else's skin. "This is highly inefficient fabric," she muttered, adjusting the collar. Jake knocked on her door. "Ready, Professor Science?" She opened the door, her glowing teal eyes scanning his face. "I am not a professor. I am a Nixian observational student. This is my first field experiment." Jake grinned. "Well, You look nice for a field experiment. I look the same. My bone structure has not changed, she replied. Jake chuckled. Let's go. He took her to a small festival outside the city. Lights twinkled in the trees. Music played softly in the background. Children ran around with glowing sticks and couples held hands under the stars. Valari looked around, eyes wide. Is this a mating ritual site? Jake laughed. No. This is just a fair. People come to relax. But males and females are pairing off. Jake nodded. Yeah, I guess it helps. She opened her wrist device to take notes. He gently pushed it down. Vel, tonight is not for studying. It's for feeling. You promised to try. Valari hesitated, then powered off her device. Their first stop was a small food stall. Jake bought her a warm funnel cake covered in sugar. Valari held it like it was a foreign creature. It is sticky. Bite it, Jake said with a grin. She bit. Her eyes widened. This is chaos. But pleasant chaos. Jake smiled. That's Earth in a nutshell. Next, he led her to a small game booth where they had to throw rings onto bottles. Valari tried and failed. This game is flawed. The rings are too light. Jake handed her another ring. Try again. This time don't think, just throw. She threw. She missed again. And again. But with each miss, she began to laugh. Not the awkward, mechanical sound she had tried before. This was real, natural, alive. Jake stared at her. You're laughing, she paused. It feels strange, like my chest is vibrating. Jake's voice softened. That's called joy, Vel. She looked away, confused. Malfunction, she whispered. It must be a malfunction. Later, they sat under a tree watching the sky. Valari was quiet. Jake broke the silence. So, what does your report say now? I stopped writing, she said. My mind was full. I wanted to feel it instead. Jake smiled. That's progress. She turned to him. I don't understand. My people taught us that emotions are distractions, that they cause mistakes. Jake picked up a fallen leaf and twirled it. Yeah, emotions can cause mistakes, but they can also cause beauty, love, bravery, friendship. Valari stared at him. Do you think I am brave? Jake looked her in the eyes. You came across galaxies to learn something terrifying to your people. That's pretty brave. Her cheeks glowed faintly. The music changed. A slow, soft tune played across the fairgrounds. Couples stood and moved together, hands on hips, arms around shoulders. Jake stood and held out a hand. Dance with me? Valari's eyes widened. That is very close contact. I'll go slow. She hesitated, then took his hand. They moved under the stars. She stepped on his foot once, then twice. I am not calibrated for this, she whispered. Jake smiled. You're doing fine. As they danced, Valari felt something in her chest again, a warmth she couldn't name, and for the first time she didn't want to name it. She just wanted to feel it. The night after the festival, Valari couldn't sleep. Her body temperature was stable, her heartbeat was normal, but her thoughts raced like a malfunctioning drone. Jake had touched her hand during the dance. Her hand was still warm. Back home, that would be a violation of contact protocol, but here, it was called affection. She wasn't sure if it was dangerous or addictive. Maybe both. The next morning, she stepped into the kitchen while Jake was cooking breakfast again. The smell of eggs and something sweet filled the air. Jake smiled. Morning, Vel. Want pancakes? No, she said firmly. I want to reproduce. Jake dropped the spatula. What? Valari crossed her arms. You said reproduction involves physical contact and emotional bonding. I have experienced the bonding. Now I wish to test the physical part. Jake blinked. You want to Have sex? With me? Yes, she replied like a scientist giving a weather report. This is purely for observation and data collection. Jake scratched his head, unsure whether to be flattered or terrified. Vel, you don't just do that like a math test. It's not mechanical. She tilted her head. Why not? You showed me mating videos. Your species does it with strangers all the time. Jake sighed. Yeah, but it's not the same. When it means something, it's better. Valari sat down, eyes serious. What is better? How do you measure it? Jake looked at her closely. Do you feel anything, Valari? At all? When you're near me? There was silence. Then she spoke, voice lower. I malfunction when you smile. My heartbeat accelerates when you say my name. And when we danced, she looked down. I felt like I wasn't floating alone in the universe anymore. Jake softened. That's not a malfunction. That's emotion. Valari shook her head. I wasn't built for this. I was taught to avoid it. Jake sat across from her. Then why are you here? Valari stared at him. Because the part of me that's broken doesn't want to be fixed. That night, Valari stepped out onto the porch. The earth sky glittered above, more stars than she ever saw on Nick 7. Jake joined her quietly. She looked at him. I'm scared. He smiled. Good. That means you care. She turned away. My people will call this treason. A bonding with an alien male. Emotional compromise. They'll recall me. Or worse. Jake gently took her hand. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for. Valari looked at his fingers around hers. I am ready. But not for an experiment, not for data. She turned toward him. I want this, because I want you. They sat together in silence. No more talk of reproduction, no more scanning with her wrist device. Just two hearts beating under alien stars. And for the first time in Valari's life, she felt like a person, not a project. Valari stood in the garden behind Jake's house. Morning wind moved softly through the trees. A bird landed near her feet. She didn't move. She was thinking about last night. Not just the closeness, not just Jake's warm hand, but the quiet, peace inside her chest, a peace she had never known before. But peace does not last long. A loud beep came from her wrist communicator. It hadn't made a sound in days. She almost forgot it was there. Urgent emotional contamination detected. Return immediately to NIX 7 for neural reset. Her eyes widened. A red light blinked rapidly. She tapped it. Recall drone dispatched. ETA. 10. Earth minutes. Valari's breath caught in her throat. They knew. Her people had been monitoring her emotional levels. She forgot her communicator also worked as a tracker. She had broken the rules, let her guard down, let her heart feel. They were coming to take her back. She ran into the house. Jake was making coffee. He turned and smiled. Whoa, are you okay? We have to hide, she said sharply. They sent a drone. Jake blinked. Who sent a what? My people. A recall drone. To take me back. They think I'm compromised. Jake stared at her. Compromised? What, like infected? She nodded. With feelings. They believe emotions are a disease. They will erase mine. He dropped the coffee cup. No way. You're not going back. Valari looked around. They won't harm you, but if you interfere, they'll neutralize. Jake grabbed his car keys. We need to go. I know a place in the forest. Old, military tunnels, no signal. They can't track you there. Valari hesitated. If she ran, she would become a fugitive, but if she stayed, her feelings, her bond with Jake, would be erased. She made her choice. Let's go. The car raced down a dirt road into thick woods. Trees blurred past the windows. Birds scattered. Dust rose behind them. Valari sat in silence, clutching her chest. She could feel her heart. Really feel it. Not just beating, wanting. She looked at Jake. You don't have to do this, she whispered. He didn't look away from the road. I do. Because I care. and because no one gets to take you from me. Valari felt something hot behind her eyes. Her vision blurred. Is this crying? She asked. Jake glanced at her. Yeah, that's crying. It hurts, but it's also warm. He nodded. That's what love feels like. They reached the old tunnels and ran inside. Just as a sharp hum filled the sky above, the recall drone hovered, scanning with red light. It spoke in Valari's language. Subject Valari 31. Surrender for emotional extraction. This is your final warning. Valari stepped out holding up her wrist device. I will not return, the drone replied. Feelings must be cleansed. Emotional malfunction must be corrected. Then, without warning, it shot a stun beam toward Jake. Valari screamed, No! She threw herself in front of him. The blast hit her side. She fell to the ground, gasping. Jake caught her, shaking. Vel! She looked up, weakly smiling. My heart chose Earth. Suddenly, her wrist device blinked again. Alert. Emotion levels exceeding limit. Core conversion imminent. Jake looked confused. What does that mean? Valari's voice trembled. My body was designed to shut down if I feel too much. Jake stood holding her tight. Then fight it. Stay here. Stay with me. She looked into his eyes. I will try. Her hands glowed faintly, not from tech, but from something deeper. The drone prepared to fire again. But this time, Valari stood. Something inside her had changed. She wasn't just a scientist anymore. She wasn't just a Nixian. She was someone who had chosen to feel. With one final move, she touched her wrist device and crushed it. The drone froze, then dropped to the ground, dead. Jake stared at her. What did you do? Valari looked at the smoking remains. I cut the link. They cannot track me anymore. But your body, your systems. She touched his cheek. I am no longer a system. I am mine. And then she kissed him, not as an experiment, not as data, but as a girl in love. 3 nights had passed since Valari destroyed the drone, but peace did not return. Jake watched her from the porch as she stood under the moonlight, arms crossed, head tilted toward the stars. She looked stronger now, yet lonelier. Any updates from your home planet? He asked gently. Valari nodded without turning around. Yes, they're coming. Not a drone this time, a full extraction team. Jake's jaw tightened. Military? She nodded again. Nixian control agents. They'll land with force, sedate me, reset my mind, wipe out every human memory, especially you. Jake stepped forward. No, I won't let them. Valari's voice was soft. I chose this world, Jake. I chose you. But now I must protect that choice. Inside the house, they began preparing. Jake pulled old tools from the shed, EMP grenades, scrap metal armor, and a few hidden energy weapons from Earth's cold conflict days. Valari uploaded blueprints of Nixian ships onto a tablet. They always follow protocol, she explained. Their first action is a scan. If they detect no resistance, they move fast. If they see disruption, they slow down. Jake looked up. So we disrupt? Valari nodded. We fight. That night, Valari sat beside Jake on the floor, surrounded by gear. I have to tell you something, she said. He looked at her. What is it? When I arrived here, I didn't believe in love. I thought it was weakness, a virus. She looked into his eyes. But now, it's the strongest thing I've ever felt. Jake smiled. Good, because it's about to be tested. The next morning, the sky tore open with sound. A Nixian ship descended like a dark storm cloud, glowing with red lines. Its engines shook the trees. Birds scattered. Dogs howled. The house shuddered. Valari stood tall, dressed in Earth combat gear, her silver blue skin shimmering under the rising sun. Jake handed her a weapon. You ready? She didn't take it. I don't need it. Jake looked confused. What? She touched her temple. I modified my neural core. I no longer run on Nixian logic systems. I run on Earth signals, emotion, instinct. He raised an eyebrow. You hacked yourself. With love. She smiled. Yes. The ship landed in the field behind the house. 3 agents stepped out, tall, pale, cold. They wore black suits and silver helmets. Their voices echoed unnaturally. Subject, Valari 31, you will return. You have been compromised. Valari stepped forward, calm and unafraid. I am not Valari 31 anymore. I am just Valari, and I am staying. The lead agent raised a control rod. You have no authority. Your mind is unstable. Jake stepped beside her, aiming his old plasma rifle. She's more stable than you'll ever be. The agents moved forward. But Valari's body began to glow, soft at first, then brighter. The agents paused. She's changing, one whispered. Valari closed her eyes. All the emotions she had felt, laughter, tears, warmth, love, rushed through her like fire, not chaos but harmony, not weakness but strength. She lifted her hand. A pulse of energy shot from her palm. Pure emotion turned into light. It hit the agents and short-circuited their control systems. They staggered. Jake fired once. Just enough to knock their weapons away. Valari stepped up to the lead agent. You call feelings a virus, but I've learned they're the cure. The agent tried to lift his arm. Valari touched his chest. You can't force someone to unfeel what they've found. I've found freedom here. The agents looked at each other. Then one removed his helmet slowly. He had tears in his eyes. Maybe. You are right. The ship left quietly. No beams, no blasts, no war, just silence. That night, Valari and Jake sat on the roof again. No more hiding. No more fear. Jake smiled. You didn't just fight them. You changed them. Valari leaned her head on his shoulder. Maybe feelings are contagious after all. 3 Earth weeks passed since the Nixian extraction team returned home without Valari. They had not spoken to her again. They had not sent another drone. But Valari knew the silence was not peace. It was watching. Waiting. Still, Earth had accepted her. The Global Council heard what happened and invited her to speak. Jake stood proudly beside her as she walked into the grand hall in Geneva, wearing both her people's sleek silver and Earth's soft colors, a symbol of both worlds. Cameras hovered. Translators blinked. Diplomats whispered. Valari stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but full of new emotion. I was born to observe. I was trained not to feel. But then I met a human who changed everything. He didn't teach me facts. He taught me feelings. He didn't give me orders, he gave me choice. And when my people came to take that choice, I didn't fight with weapons. I fought with truth. And love. If you fear what I've become, then you fear your own future. But if you welcome it, then maybe, just maybe, your world and mine can learn to feel together. There was silence. And then, thunderous applause. After the speech, Valari and Jake returned to his countryside home, now protected by Earth's diplomatic guard. They stood under the same tree where they once danced, arms quietly touching. I never thought I'd be famous, Jake joked. Valari smiled softly. Neither did I only wanted to learn. He looked at her. Do you regret it? She turned toward him. No. I feel more alive now than I ever did before. That night her communicator blinked, but this time it wasn't a warning, it was a message. Council of Nix 7 requests open dialogue. We wish to send a representative. Jake leaned over her shoulder. That's not what I expected. Valari nodded. They must have seen the broadcast. 2 days later, a small Nixian transport ship landed. Quiet, sleek, unarmed. From it stepped someone Valari knew well. Eris, her former mentor. Cold, logical, respected. He had been the one who called her malfunctioning back on Nix 7 now. He stood before her with soft eyes, almost unsure. "I watched your speech," he said. "You made us feel uncomfortable and curious." Valari nodded. "Good. Curiosity is where change begins." Eris looked around. "Is this the male who infected you with emotion?" Jake raised an eyebrow. "Nice to meet you too." Valari smiled. "He didn't infect me. He loved me, and I loved him back." Eris was quiet for a long time. Then he said something no Nixian had ever said to her. "Show me." Over the next week, Valari and Jake hosted Eris at their home. They took him to a local school where children painted freely. No rules, no grades. They showed him movies. He cried watching one. They introduced him to Jake's friends. One hugged him and he didn't flinch. Every night he asked more questions. Every day he blinked more slowly, processing not with his mind but with something new. On the 7th day, he said softly, "Maybe we were wrong. Emotion is not disorder. It is another kind of intelligence." Valari placed her hand on his shoulder. "Then take this back home. Let our people feel." Months passed. The message from Nix 7 shocked the galaxy. The Nixian High Council has voted to allow emotional development. The reset program is suspended. Observation missions will now include emotional interaction. Valari stood in front of the mirror again, but this time she wore something entirely new. An ambassador's robe made of both Nixian material and earth fabric. It shimmered like starlight and sunlight mixed. Jake walked up behind her. "Ambassador Valari," he said playfully. She turned and placed his hand on her heart. "Made of earth," she said with a smile. Their bond was not just romantic, it became historic. Together, they led the first Earth Nix cultural mission, human and Nixian. Students learned side by side. Love stories became part of training. Art and science shared the same table. But the most beautiful moment came 1 year later. Under the same tree, on the same patch of grass with the stars blinking above, Jake knelt and held out a small silver ring with blue light pulsing at its center. "Valari, you once came here to study humans. Now I want you to be one with me. Will you marry me?" Valari stared at the ring, then at Jake. Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't need to scan your question," she whispered. "I feel the answer." And she said the words no Nixian had ever said in her people's entire history. "Yes. I want to be yours." The wedding wasn't large, but it was watched by 2 worlds. Valari wore silver and sky blue. Jake wore black and white. A Nixian priest and a human elder both led the vows. They kissed beneath the stars. The galaxy would never be the same again. Later, in their quiet home, Jake lay beside her. "You changed them all, Valari. You changed your world." She rested her head on his chest. "No, we did. And maybe someday other hearts will wake up too." He smiled. "You do this all the time?" She whispered again, repeating the words she once said long ago. Jake chuckled. "Yeah, it's called love." She closed her eyes and whispered, "Then I hope I never stop."